Good morning on this busy Monday morning, March 21st, 2022. And welcome to the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known. Today is the day of the confirmation hearings. They begin for Judge Katanji Brown Jackson, who is, if confirmed, becomes the first Black woman on the U.S. Supreme Court. Also, we look at the enshrinement of William Garth Sr. to the Black Press Archives and Gallery of Distinguished Publishers. Joining us this morning is a fabulous panel, including NMPA Capitol Hill journalist and host of the Burke File podcast, Lauren Burke, Let It Be Known correspondent and Washington Informer journalist James Wright, Let It Be Known's top legal mind from the Tarver law firm in New Jersey, Robert Tarver. Robin Massengale is also joining us, as is the publisher of Insight News, Al McFarlane. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, first, this morning, we look at some of the headlines, and we start actually out in Minneapolis, where public defenders have reached a deal to avoid a strike. Al, real quick, what's the situation there? They were set to walk out tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. They had a strike authorization vote last week, and tomorrow would have been strike day. The issue was money. They feel they're overworked, underpaid, and they've reached a deal that's going to give them 3.5% retroactive pay from July 1, when the previous contract expired, and a 3% bump after July 1 of this year. And what that means is that they were claiming that the contract they have requires about 1,350 hours per year, but they've been working, they say, up to 2,000 or between 500 and 2,000 extra hours per year without pay. So this agreement doesn't fund work they put in the past, but it tries to compensate them more fairly for work going forward. So, as it turns out, public defender attorneys in Minnesota have been shorter or less than their contemporaries in other places around the country. The entry level salary was about $66,000 with a max of about $115,000, and they simply want parity.
Yeah, and I understand that the pay raise is retroactive to July 21st of 2021. We all know public defenders. We hear the stories all the time, caseload after caseload after caseload. I think it's also important too, and let me go to Robin on this too. Isn't it important, Robin, that these public defenders everywhere are compensated, because they do have caseload after caseload, and we know that certainly many people of color have to use public defenders, and oftentimes, because their caseloads are so burdensome, you don't get good defense. And Robin, we can't hear you.
Sorry about that, I was muted. DC has the top public defender service in the country, which says a lot, because they should be equally funded across the country. The Constitution guarantees a right of representation in any criminal defense. And so you should not have any defendant going into trial unprepared with the power of the state coming down on them. So I'm glad that Minnesota was able to reach that agreement, because in which he got 5 months in jail for a heinous offense. And so you shouldn't have to pay that kind of money just to get equal justice.
Absolutely. Also in the news this morning, in a tweet that is sure to raise more than just a few eyebrows, Dr. Sonia Douglas, the apparent estranged wife of Nevada Democratic Congressman Stephen Horsford, took the representative to task over his decision to run for re-election. Dr. Douglas, whom we've had on this program, began a series of tweets on Sunday. A 10-year affair we've been having. She lashed out at her husband for choosing to run for re-election this year, and forcing her and the couple's children to, quote, endure yet another season of living through the sordid details of his affair rather than granting the family the time and space to heal. She says, we have not healed. We've not had a chance to heal. Now, let it be known, has not heard back from the congressman on this. But Lauren, this could be a real big blow to Democrats because, they're election.
Yeah, but I'm not sure Steve Horsford is in danger of being hurt politically by this. And I think it, frankly, is internet sort of social media spectacle more than anything else. Obviously, the two of them need to sit down and have a discussion about what they're doing and why and how they want to move forward. And I actually think our nation needs to have a discussion about the impact of social media on people with regard to their unending need to put personal business out in the public sphere. Though it may seem cathartic on a personal level to do that, I'm not sure it solves anything, because at the end of the day, your issue is with your husband, and that's the person that you need to talk to, not thousands of people on social media. I'm old-fashioned. I come from the land of you handle your personal problems with the people that you need to handle them with, unless that's not possible. I mean, there are certain things in our society, but this is one of those things that is possible. I'm not sure.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lauren.
I was just going to end with, I'm not sure we needed to know the 10 years. I think that was new information. So it's interesting. It's ironic because she's claiming that this is a message to the media to stop talking about it. But she just added a major detail that the media did not know about, which would likely compel them to write about that, which was the 10 years. And of course, her just putting it out there. You doing that is going to cause a story. I mean, she's got to know that. So, there's several discussions we could have about this. Interesting moment.
But reading her words, obviously, like you said, it's hard to put anything in actual context when you see it on social media. But reading her words, it seems like there was some attempt at least to have this discussion with the congressman, and it seems like it just failed.
Well, obviously it failed because he's now a member of Congress and he's going to run again in all likelihood. So the question is, why did we have to know anything about this? This is something that's personal to the two of them that really is nobody's business. I've always maintained that, involving in legality, personal private business, business. It was really between Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, and the third person. Like, why are we involved in this? Everybody was over age. Everybody was over the age of 18. Was it stupid what Bill Clinton did? Of course it was stupid. But it's a situation where, I'm not sure what she's fixing by doing this other than causing spectacle. But I do think social media, particularly Twitter, drives people for the dopamine hit of the like button. They want the social one-on-one sessions with your psychiatrist.
Yeah, you mentioned Bill Clinton. No matter what that act, and remember Bill Clinton, I did not have sexual relations with that woman, but it seems like Hillary really, really got it bad from the media, and she was the victim.
Right. Well, keep in mind, so much of what we see on social media, by the way, I mean, we just saw it with Kanye West, although what he did, I think, was certainly more extreme than most people, right? But we have all this sympathy. Imagine if Sonia Horsford was male, we would have a different discussion. Probably be called cyberbullying, and how dare he put this out on her? I think it makes any difference. I mean, it's something that the two of them need to work out in private, clearly.
Yeah, absolutely. And they have children too. So
right.
It's really an all around sad situation. And as you said, hopefully they are able to work it out. Judge Katanji Brown Jackson, the confirmation hearings begin today for the potential for Black women on the Supreme Court. Lauren, I'm going to again start with you on this, and we'll go around the table on this. But what is the feeling? What's the temperature of the GOP on this nominee?
Well, you saw Mitch McConnell yesterday not answer the question about whether or not he's going to vote for her. I actually suspect that I think if they see any open to try to stop the nomination, because the Republicans are about power. They're not about anything else but power and control of things. Now with this news that Clarence Thomas is in the hospital, which nobody knew about, which he's been in the hospital now for more than 48 hours that we know of, that may put the Republicans in a slightly different mood. But this particular committee, it would have a hard time explaining how it is they voted for her for the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia, and then all of a sudden they're not going to vote for her for the Supreme Court. But, you know, the Republicans don't have any shame when it comes to hypocrisy or when it comes to politics or naked power. So we can expect some fireworks out there from Tom Cotton and Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley today. If anybody bothered to actually read Ketanji Jackson's opinions, they'd probably find her to be see what happens when people actually look at some of her opinions, which are slightly conservative.
Yeah, and James, this is what Senator Josh Hawley out of Missouri, the Republican out of Missouri, had to say. He said, "I've noticed an alarming pattern when it comes to Judge Jackson's treatment of sex offenders, especially those preying on children." So it seems like he's throwing something out there. He's throwing, trying to create a fire somewhere.
He's throwing out a dog whistle to people who listen to that kind of stuff. I was going to use another S word, but this is a family show, so I'll just say stuff. And Stacey, just keep in mind that if Judge Jackson gets a hard time, it won't be unusual for Black nominees to that court. Justice Thurgood Marshall had a really difficult time, particularly with Strom Thurmond, in terms of getting on the U.S. Supreme Court in 1967. And of course, we all remember, and we're not dating ourselves, in 1991, when President Bush nominated Clarence Thomas, of the Anita Hill testimony and all the stuff that went on with that. So people should just gird themselves, because this is going to be hard for her. They're going to try to make it hard for her. And I just hate to say it, probably because she's Black.
Yeah. And Robin, I want to go to you with this pick. A lot's going on. We know the NAACP is having a watch party. As James had reported earlier, there's going to be some watch parties and other discussions and gatherings around D.C. Robin, what are you expecting to come out of these hearings? It's 4 days of confirmation hearings are scheduled. Judge Jackson will testify. She'll have to answer a lot of questions. What are you expecting, Robin?
I think I agree with the panelists that anytime Black people or Black women and men are before any judicial nominee, they get a hard time. I think if there are 3 places that she may have some vulnerability that they may ask her, she's not vulnerable to it, but they will focus on and ask her about, is her time on the Sentencing Commission, her time as a federal public defender, and her time representing detainees at Guantanamo Bay, all of which go to defense, all of which the Constitution requires. But I think that she'll come out unscathed, and it would be hypocrisy for them to have voted for her 3 times and then make a decision at this point not to vote for her. She has a clean record, highly educated. She's one of 2 women on the court who are actual litigation attorneys. So she should come out unscathed, however difficult it will be. We are used to this and we are built for it.
Yeah, Al McFarlane of Insight News. Al, as mentioned earlier, Justice Clarence Thomas is hospitalized. It's kind of interesting that we didn't know a whole lot about his hospitalization until, just over the last couple of days. Could that, as Lauren indicated, do you expect that to really drive the Republicans to do whatever they can not to confirm Judge Jackson?
I don't know what the impact of that will be. I think it's interesting that it's happening and that we haven't known about it, but I do not know how it will influence their energy in challenging or attempting to block Judge Katanji Brown Jackson's confirmation. But like the other panelists here today, you can always expect a unified effort to challenge or question or derail movement for Black people in the Republican Party. This probably is not an exception. I agree that she's almost bulletproof. She has all the credentials, all the training, and the pathway that she represents is unique because it does include the litigation experience, and that is an asset for the court. So,
yeah. And Lauren, I want to go back to you with this because, obviously being a judge at Judge Jackson's level, you have to have thick skin. But we also know that this is a different climate, different political climate, especially for the Republicans. We saw with the Crown Act, although it did pass, was it Marjorie Taylor Greene called it, and we know that this was a racist remark, the nappy hair legislation. And I say that to say that they will stop at nothing, will they, Lauren? And so Judge Jackson has got to be prepared for personal and even dog whistles, right? For personal attacks and dog whistles as well.
Yeah, well, the branding of the modern Republican Party, which started somewhere around the early 1970s, is anti-Black, basically. It started with the Southern strategy. And so anything Black is seen as something they have to market to scare white voters into staying with them. It's a naked thing right now. They used to try to act at least as if it was a dog whistle. Now they're just right out in the open. Some of these members are right out in the open with what they're doing. So, yeah, I mean, remember, Ketanji Jackson didn't just, fall off the chicken truck or walk out of the cotton field. She's somebody who went to Harvard Law and has the best education sitting up there. And of course, the first person she'll be talking to today, Chuck Grassley, who is the senior member of the senior Republican on the Judiciary Committee, of course, is a non-lawyer, has no law degree, and is sitting up there presiding over this hearing, along with really Dick Durbin is presiding over the hearing because Democrats have control. But, first Republican you will hear is a non-attorney. So, I mean, this is a little bit farcical to think that she has to prove something given her resume, which is a lot better than almost everybody sitting there. I know Ted Cruz went to Harvard Law, but give me a break. She's going to be introduced, by the way, today by Judge Thomas Griffin, and law professor talking about qualified people, other Black women who could be on the Supreme Court. Lisa Fairfax, who is the University of Pennsylvania professor, who, by the way, is Justin Fairfax's sister-in-law, the former Lieutenant Governor of Virginia. But at any rate, a lot of Black people, more and more, are going to Harvard. You're seeing a lot of Harvard law grads come out, and now they're coming of age. So I'm not sure what John Cornyn and John Kennedy are going to do out there. I'm sure it's going to be something that they can market to raise money for their next campaign. And campaign coming up. So you can bet that whatever is said out there will somehow perfectly fit into a campaign message. But John Kennedy's got to be careful because Louisiana is, I think, 29% African-American, and he's got a primary. They've got that jungle primary there with a Black person, a Black candidate who is extremely energetic and making the same arguments that Stacey Abrams is making, which is if you can get these Black people out here to vote in Louisiana, we got a shot. So the Republicans, I'm sure, will challenge her. This is, again, if anybody actually read her cases, they'd probably be in agreement, particularly with one case that Ketanji Jackson did. She was a public defender, as we know, but she was a public defender for a very short period of time. Okay, so even though it's there, but, she's kind of like me, where it's like the only thing we have in common is we do have a lot of law enforcement in the family. And when you have a lot of law enforcement in the family, you tend to lean a little bit conservative on law and order type issues. So I sort of know what that looks like. And she made a judgment for ICE with regard to detaining folks coming across the border from Mexico that I think a lot of people would have a problem with, and a lot of people on the right would agree with. But again, they're not reading that. They're just saying, oh, she's a Black female, so we got to go all in. So it's going to be a
So, Robin, what do you anticipate the Republicans asking Judge Jackson during these hearings? And Robin, you're on mute again.
Yes, I'm crazy about this today. Okay, so I think that Lauren is right. They're going to talk about even as she comes from a heavy law enforcement background, even as she, has relatively conservative opinions, they're going to attack her as being soft on crime. They're going to bring up what James talked about earlier, which is her alleged softness on sexual molesters, all of which is untrue. I mean, I believe that she has enough people around her who have trained her and for this whole process that she will be able to rise above and answer adequately. The only other thing I think that they might discuss is the Harvard case. What they'll ask her how she's going to view that Harvard case, which is an affirmative action case, and whether she would recuse herself. And I think that that's hilarious, given that Clarence Thomas may be in the hospital, but given the chance, if he was asked, your wife was a part of the insurrection, you're going to recuse yourself. Mm-hmm. The answer would be no, I ain't doing that. So I think that those are that kind of thing. What she would do in a Harvard case. I think the other issue that they will address with her is her strict adherence to the law, and we know that Roe v. Wade, which is settled law, which was settled law, which we now understand there is really no longer settled law. I find it interesting that they will likely address her adherence to the law when the court has basically overturned, I think the question that many of the Republican nominees were asked was, do you still adhere to Brown versus Board? Do you still adhere to these, major judicial cases? And they would not answer that question. I believe that Judge Katanji Jackson would answer in the affirmative, absolutely. Mm-hmm. So I think that those are the kind of challenges she will face. And again, I think she's built for it, and she will overcome it.
Yeah, and real quick, James, what kind of justice will Ketanji Brown Jackson be?
Well, let me just say that I think that she will be an outstanding justice because she's an excellent writer. She's written over 600 opinions as a U.S. District Court judge, and only 12 of those opinions, only 12, have been reversed. And that is an excellent record. Also, the fact is that, and I do want to go back to what Robin was saying about the Harvard case in terms of the affirmative action, which is coming up. That's a fair point. And the senator should ask her about whether she'll recuse herself on that, instead of that other ridiculous junk they're going to ask her. But I believe she will be one of the better writers on the court. She will be one of the better thinkers on the court. And let me just remind you that the ABA has rated her well qualified to be on the Supreme Court. Oh, and by the way, the ABA rated Clarence Thomas qualified, not well qualified, to be on the court.
Clarence Thomas rears his head again. The Congress Democrats hope that this is completed, that the confirmation is completed, that she's confirmed by their recess on April 11th. So we obviously are going to be watching that very, very, very closely. We certainly appreciate the input this morning, the expertise that you guys bring. Al, I want to go to Al McFarlane now, because no list of Black press giants is complete without the names of John Rushworm and Samuel Cornish of Freedom's Journal, the nation's first Black newspaper, Philip Bell of the Colored American and San Francisco Elevator, and Martin Delaney, co-publisher with Frederick Douglass of the North Star. Appropriately, all have been enshrined by the National Newspaper Publishers Association Fund at Howard University's Moreland Spingarn Research Center. Now, the late William Garth Sr. of the storied Chicago Citizen has joined those and other giants. Al, we know that you knew William Garth Sr. really well. Tell us about his enshrinement, what it meant to you, and tell us a little bit. I know you have a couple of stories about William Garth Sr. Tell us about him.
Well, I call Bill Garth kind of an OG, just a powerful force, a principled man, an organizer, a fighter. an entrepreneur, and he was one of the people that mentored me coming from Minnesota into NPA. I remember sitting with Bill Garth and with Chuck Kelly out of Detroit, and some of the other publishers, learning about the stories, personal stories of the fights they had to bring their businesses to fruition. And they were instructive all the time and encouraging, but they said in their walk that what we are attempting to do, we can do. And what we are working on must be worked on, can be done, and that we will win. So Bill had that winning attitude. Bill and I created a company in the Midwest here called Midwest Black Publishers Coalition. We organized about, I think, 12 or 10 newspaper members who are all NMPA members on a regional basis to go after more advertising for regional-based companies. We were very successful. Bill and I also worked to promote PanaFest, which is the Pan-African Theater Festival. In 1999, we traveled to Ghana, toured the castles at the slave castles at Cape Coast and Elmina. We actually visited with the vice president of Ghana, John Atta Mills, at that time, and worked with a lot of people who were Ghanaian legislators in their assembly to help promote more interaction between African Americans and Africans. That has emerged into the year of return that we just came out of. And so we've been doing this. Bill was on the forefront. Bill also worked closely with Jesse Jackson and the Operation Push organization. And the bottom line for me is that Bill is one of the many, many excellent, hardworking, gifted, visionary publishing executives or owners and leaders that we need to lift up and to sort of share their story with the idea that their story will motivate and encourage others to do the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dr. Chavis, I know that you have your own personal testimonies of Bill Garth Sr. He passed away in 2017, I believe, at the age of 79. But the enshrinement, Dr. Chavis, talk about, if you will, the importance of that enshrinement ceremony and what it means for our publishers to be enshrined. Well, Doc, we don't have a volume on you, Dr. Chavis.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. The Honorable Bill Garth was one of the greatest publishers in the NMPA. And, you know, our enshrinement ceremony last week was very fitting. And I thank Al McFarlane for sharing the relationship, the working relationship, and the powers. You know, one of the things about Bill Garth, he took the Chicago Citizen to a whole nother level. Mm-hmm. They had 5 different editions throughout the Chicago area. He had an impact. And, you know, he took over the paper after Gus Savage, the Honorable Gus Savage, who was a member of Congress. And just let me say that the Black press, we should learn from all of the publishers that have been enshrined. And again, I agree with Al. Just don't have to repeat what he said. Just say amen. And now what we have to say, and I'm so thankful that the Garth family is continuing the Citizen newspaper group in Chicago. His son, his daughter-in-law, they're doing an excellent job. And on behalf of the National Newspaper Publishers Association and on behalf of the NMPA Fund, which was in charge of the enshrinement, we salute the legacy, the memory, and I would say the living challenge of Bill Garth. He was not satisfied with one neighborhood. He got all the neighborhoods, all the regions in his great city of Chicago. And I think as we look at the Black press today, 195 years old, we should see, as Al just mentioned, the whole globe, the global Black press. Mm-hmm. I mean, we have to connect with our brothers and sisters throughout the diaspora. And of course, on this day, as these hearings get ready to start now with the Honorable Brown Jackson, we have to weigh in. And I'm glad that you weighed in early in the program. So salute salute to the living legacy of William Bill Goff.
Absolutely. And folks, you can still see the enshrinement ceremony and all of what went on during Black Press Week at www.events.com. Again, it's www.nnpa/events.com. Please check us out there, and you'll see that ceremony. And again, all of the great things that happened during Black Press Week. Thanks so much, Al McFarlane, for this.
Can I add one thing? Bill always carried a pocketbook version of the Constitution in his suit, and so he was focused on and committed to the principles of the Constitution of our country. He was an ardent defender of the promise and the potential of our nation. So that's Bill Garth. He was a fighter.
Well, that's a great tidbit to end on, Al. We really appreciate it. Dr. Chavis, as always, we appreciate our CEO. Thanks for joining us, and we will definitely see you tomorrow with even more news and information that you can use to start your day. Thanks for joining us.